From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It sounds like you all have this, this nugget of background in that area, poetry, religion, English, and I'm guessing though that you're using them in different ways now than you intended years ago. And so I guess I'm just wondering, how does that specialty maybe come into play, or where does that, how does that come across to a patron who's coming in and needing some kind of assistance?
So I don't think English majors ever know what they're going to be when they grow up, at first when they get there. So it took me a long, long time to figure out I wanted to be a librarian. And lots of people say, "Oh, you're so lucky you get to be a librarian, and you must get to read all day long." Is that vision? And I never get to read, or maybe just book reviews. But in terms of assigning the Ask a Librarian questions, we do assign those to the people. When the question comes in asking what is the meaning of life, Cheryl has to answer that one.
And I have gotten that one.
She has gotten that one. Yes, she has gotten that one. And both Peter and I get the questions of, I'm looking for this book, but I can't remember the title or the author, but my mother used to read it to me when I was little, and I'm about to have a grandchild, and I want to read all of that kind of thing. But also, looking for information on Shakespeare, a lot of literary criticism questions from all over the world. And those are tricky because it's hard to know what resources they have available in Pakistan or Iraq or wherever to study Joseph Conrad. Usually not very much. And the notion that everything is freely available online has to be explained. We have to burst that bubble right away. But so either my colleagues will direct someone to me, or I'll get Ask a Librarian questions, or as Cheryl mentioned, we're also the recommending officers in our specialty. So I will be monitoring our book dealers. English literature is Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, and Ireland. And so we have book dealers in those places and plans set up, but I'm also reading other materials, looking through new books, and deciding what we should get. So.
One of the things that the digital reference team does is to offer regular outreach programs on different subject areas. So we offer a monthly orientation to the Library of Congress's online resources, and I provide a few of those presentations a year, and that gives me an opportunity to highlight some of our poetry resources in the course of talking about the overall Library of Congress website and the materials available through it. But as the poetry specialist for our team, I've also been able to offer a number of poetry-related programs. So April is National Poetry Month, and during the previous April, this April, we offered a few programs related to poetry. So one of the programs that I offered was an hour-long webinar on poetry resources on the Library of Congress's website, and so that allowed me to take advantage of my background to highlight different areas of our site that educators and members of the public could use to find poetry-related materials and incorporate them if they're teachers into the classroom. And we also just offered a wonderful program on some of the literary audio archives at the library, where I was able to bring in somebody from the Hispanic division to talk about the Archive of Hispanic Literature on Tape and the Archive of Recorded Poetry and Literature, which are two major audio archives related to poetry and literature here at the library, which were recently made available last year. So people can now go online and listen to recordings of famous authors and writers who have come to the library since the early 1940s. To read and discuss their work. And so that's a fabulous resource, and based on my specialty, I have an opportunity to highlight some of these amazing resources for people who don't always have a chance to come here to the library.
I want to jump in and tell you Peter's really, really active with the Poetry and Literature Center. So he writes wonderful blog posts. It's called From the Catbird Seat, because that's the name of the office for the Poetry Center. And he's one of the major editors of the blog and writes wonderful pieces for that as well.
And Abby has made some great contributions as well. And I think that's social media in general is one of the ways that the Library of Congress is increasingly looking to extend our reach to non-traditional users. And so increasingly we're turning to Facebook, to blogs, to Twitter, even to Instagram, to make people more aware of our resources in mediums other than coming to the Library of Congress itself, it's a great way to reach people who normally wouldn't come here to find information.
And you asked about, what we imagined, and actually as a child I did want to become a librarian. I'm not the only one here, because I just loved libraries, but I think I imagined that I would read all day, which you don't. But one of the things, the marriage of library science and religion is interesting for me just because of the people who are drawn to religion for whatever reason. It's just a chance to meet people and what they believe, or it could be a very academic question, or it could be a faith-based question. But to stand there as a reference librarian and be very open to whatever it is they're trying to find out can be just fascinating. And really, it's such a privilege to hear what they're passionate about. So.
I think one of the things that stood out as you have talked about what you do is just how multifaceted it is. I think when people talk to me about being a teacher, they have a pretty, not very nuanced understanding of what it really looks like to be a teacher, right? And so I'm thinking the same thing about the work that you do. And so there's outreach, and then you're dealing with social media platforms. What's one of the things you wanted to be a librarian, and things have changed over time? What's one of the things that's surprised you the most over the years about this job that you do each day?
I absolutely love my job for the variety, the different things I get to do. Recently, I worked on an exhibit. Peter and I put together a small case, so I never thought I'd be a museum curator along with being a librarian. But I think the best thing about my job is that I get to learn something new all the time. Every day there are new questions coming in, and as I get to research them, try and find an answer, I'm learning along the way. So I think it's a job where you can never get bored.
I also think that you're learning something often through somebody else's curiosity, and then you're curious about, wow, why is that like that? And you get the fun of playing with it, but you don't have to write the paper. I love that part.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.